and welcome to my living room. Yes, you think I should be in the office, that's the place to work, but to be honest, I find I get a lot of work done sitting right here in this chair. It's absolutely fine. It's a place of peace and tranquility, and I've got what I need. I've got my phone here, I can make the calls. I've got my laptop, I can sit with it here on my lap and just kick my feet up on the footstool. And really, I do get an awful lot of work done. It's absolutely tremendous. Of course, a lot of other good things happen here as well. If you look on my Facebook page, you'll see the cover photo there is my 3 grandchildren actually sitting in this very chair. We have celebrations, we have family times, we just pass the time of day. It's a great place to be. Which, when I'm coming up to Easter and I'm thinking along with the rest of the world about the events of the Passion Week, of Jesus' crucifixion, his death, and of course his resurrection, sometimes sitting here in peace and tranquility and security just makes me feel a little bit awkward. When there is so much going on in the world which is not peace and tranquility. I've just come back from Washington, where many leaders from across the Adventist world have met together for a series of advisories. And while you're there at the Adventist World Church headquarters, it's very likely that you will make a trip into downtown Washington and you'll see the sights there. We went as a group of communicators to the News Museum, and one of the things that really struck me there, and indeed even driving around Washington, was how much of our history, how much of our news is based on war, based on conflict, based on difficulties. You go in the News Museum and the first big display you'll see there is the Berlin Wall coming down some years ago. You go around the corner and there's a big FBI exhibition saying how the FBI is working against terrorism and all sorts of different things. You'll go upstairs and you'll see the Vietnam War coverage, you'll see the Korean War, you'll see the First and Second World War. You then go down into the Mall and you'll see there a very lovely exhibit of the Korean War and different things. And is that what our history is about? I wonder. The most moving memorial I saw in Washington this time, because I have been there a number of times before, and this one I hadn't seen because it's only been there a few recent years, and that is the Martin Luther King Memorial. It's a large display, and it was moving to be there, particularly with friends that I was with from all sorts of parts of the planet, but also to see the statements that they had put there on display that were significant statements from his life. There's a couple that particularly struck me. I actually took photos, so they are here on my computer. The one is actually on the side of the monument, and it says, "Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope." But then in this difficult world that we live in, and a world that is filled with war and despair and refugees and all sorts of horrors, he said in Norway in 1964, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. That is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, triumphant." And these words here are probably significant in terms of Jesus' words as well, where he says, "My peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be fearful. Do not be afraid." And that's maybe important in the world we live in now. It's important when I see people like Mrs. Suza Moldovan, who's there in the railway station in Hungary. At least she was until Hungary closed the borders, and she actually took refugees fleeing from Afghanistan, fleeing from Syria, into her home, allowed them to shower, bath, fed them, and she's still in contact with some of them, in particular with Shahid, who was making his way from Afghanistan and is now in Germany, and the connection they made and the prayer they were able to share together, even though he comes from a different faith background, has helped him as he starts a new life in Germany. Or up in Sweden, where there's in a very remote part of Sweden, there's an Adventist church, and right next to it there is a refugee centre with 100 refugees there, and that church and community have just adopted them, and it's a marvellous story to see the way that they've taken them in, teaching them Swedish, teaching them how to ski in the middle of winter, sharing with them. 25 of those refugee children are now in the Adventist Pathfinder Club, and what a joy to be able to share like that. And even in the difficult times for us. Sadly, I had to lead out in a funeral just a week or so back. Funeral of someone who died of pancreatic cancer, only a year or so older than me. Vibrant, enthusiastic, positive, optimistic person. And yet she's gone to rest until Jesus comes again. And yes, it was a sad affair, but in the sadness there was also great optimism and great hope, because of Jesus' words, "My peace I give unto you." Because of the Apostle Paul's words when he describes the second coming and says, "Comfort one another with those words." And so in the context of Easter, of the death of Jesus that forgives our sins, that gives us hope, with the resurrection of Jesus on that Easter Sunday, that gives us security for the future. So that lovely lady that I, along with her family and all of her friends, had to say goodbye to. At the close of the service, one of the last things I said in that service was something that her son had told me, and that was that Mum had insisted, do not put my glasses inside the coffin, because when Jesus comes again on that resurrection morning, when I wake up, I'm not going to need those glasses. Jesus will have made me whole. That's a hope for us this Easter. That's the reason why I am passionate about sharing Jesus wherever we can, sharing hope, recognizing that even in a world where maybe the best I can do to help is making a donation to ADRA or collecting for ADRA during the annual appeal, or whatever it is, or maybe going and helping a neighbour, whatever I'm doing, I can be doing something very practical, very positive, sharing the peace that Jesus says in a world that is perhaps not peaceful, but where the peace of Jesus in my heart gives a gift to everyone I come in contact with. Happy Easter.